Dinghai Fusheng Records. Chapter 31. First Snow. It was barely half a day into the autumn close festival, and trouble already came. A state of bitter enmity grew between Xiang Shu and Che Lufeng. Chen Xing didn't expect the news of Tui Bian's arrival in Chi Le Chuan would spread so quickly like this. Perhaps that group of Ruran cavalry went back and reported it right away to Che Lufeng. Xiang Shu said in a deep voice, "That man has left. In Chi Le Chuan, fighting is forbidden. This has been the rule for over the last 400 years. Che Lufeng refused to yield at all, saying in a clear voice, "Xian-based Tuiba clan screwed my Ruran's people and also captured my Ruran's old and young. It doesn't matter if he is your friend, divine doctor. We cannot live under the same sky. It's a grave offense." Speaking so, he prepared to lead the troops to give chase. But Xiang Shu shouted angrily, "Who dares to kill?" That sound was like a blossoming thunderstorm, jolting Chen Xing, his ears throbbing with sharp pain, his eyes going dark, and he nearly fainted. Xiang Shu was enraged. The Ruran cavalry members' hearts immediately felt dread, and simultaneously retreat half a step. "Che Lufeng," Xiang Shu coldly said, "if you do take revenge, if you kill Tui Bian, you and your tribe need to scram out of the Yin Mountains, and throughout the rest of your life, you may never step into Chi Le Chuan ever again. The great Chanyu always keeps his word." Che Lufeng, who was in a daze, gasped for breath. He was shouting so hard he had nearly sobered up. When Chen Xing was about to open his mouth to ease the tension, Xiang Shu raised his hand, prohibiting him from speaking, then he swept his eyes across the cavalry, his eyes carrying an imposing aura. Many years ago, on behalf of the country, Tuiba Yan's paternal grandfather, Tuiba Shijian, along with the rest of Tuiba clan, tried to set up an independent political division in the northeast, which was later stopped by Fujian. Chasing the descendant to take revenge for that at risk of offending the great Chanyu was clearly not worth it. The cavalry sobered up soon, one after another. They gave Che Lufeng a meaningful look, hinting for him to forget about it. "Shulukong, you," Che Lufeng laughed in anger, then angrily said, "You really think the Rurans are seriously afraid of you? Try me," Xiang Shu said, "you will leave before sunrise tomorrow morning." The number of Rurans in the ancient Chi Le covenant almost reached 60,000, and if they were really driven out of the covenant, it would be no small matter. Many people around the plain heard their quarrel, and they came out one by one and formed a circle. Still, Xiang Shu didn't stop there. He raised his hand, pointing at the venue, and continued, "This is your choice. I will count to 3, and either you raise your soldiers and take your revenge, or you go back and celebrate the festival." 3. Che Lufeng ruthlessly threw his weapons down on the ground and using his horse, he galloped out of the crowd. The Hu people busily tried to part, making an exit path for him. A moment later, the Ruran cavalry cleanly and clearly withdrew. Even though he saw Che Lufeng go north, Chen Xing was still anxious. After the crowd had dispersed, Xiang Shu once again called over a tile man and whispered an order that Chen Xing roughly understood. Basically it was to get a group of cavalry to catch up with Tui Bian and escort him until he reached the Great Wall to avoid being chased for revenge by Che Lufeng. Chen Xing breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Thank you." However, Xiang Shu didn't say a word, and with a gloomy face, he turned around and walked away. Chen Xing remained standing in melancholy for a moment, and he suddenly felt that under the lively and flourishing scene of the autumn close festival, there was a sense of emptiness and solitude. He then dragged his heavy legs back to the tent. Xiang Shu took the lead in returning to the royal tent. When Chen Xing opened the curtain to enter, he saw that the inside was in a complete mess. Clearly, Che Lufeng had come here, taking with him the things he had used during his stay on Xiang Shu's tent for the past few days. Xiang Shu saw this scene and was obviously infuriated by it. Chen Xing didn't comment on it either, just bending down to clean up the mess, saying, "Tui Bian is my friend, I'm sorry for troubling you." Xiang Shu spoke, Che Lufeng has always been like this. Wait a few days for him to think it over, and he'll come asking for your apology." Recalling what had happened at today's venue, Chen Xing said, "I have purchased a horse and tomorrow, I will trade it for some food with your clansmen again and also for a sufficient amount of clothing to defend against the cold. I will immediately set out north." Xiang Shu sat down in the tent silently. Chen Xing had come to a realization that Gle Chuan, although beautiful, in the end, it was not his hometown. Xiang Shu's clansmen, although enthusiastic, at the end of the day, they were also not his clansmen. After staying in Gle Chuan for a month, he gradually became aware that perhaps, south of the Yangtze River, with its emerald green terraces and songbirds' cries all over the world, was a place he ought to go. Xiang Shu took a quick glance at Chen Xing, seemingly seeing through to his inner thoughts. Chen Xing simply tidied up the tent for Xiang Shu and spoke, "I've stayed here for too long, and I'm afraid of making more trouble for you. I'll get lost at once." Xiang Shu. Chen Xing poured himself a cup of milk tea, sat down, considered it, scratched his head, and said, "The matter of being a protector, just forget about it ba. You're the great Chanyu, you also have your own responsibilities and can't always follow me to wander around all over the place. There are many people that need you. This person's luck has always been very good, so you also don't need to worry about me." Xiang Shu remained silent. Chen Xing examined his medicine bag and put away his dagger. He looked for the map, read through it carefully for a while, and by comparing the parchment copied by Xiang Shu as well as the terrain of the mountains and rivers beyond the Great Wall, he tried to speculate on the location of the gorge and the Great Lake. Based on the map and the direction of the Big Dipper, he had to go all the way north. Maybe, he could even meet the Akales. He had learnt a little Xiangnu, and when he met them, he could ask for directions. Although the future was bleak, there was still hope. He couldn't afford to delay any more, only wishing to find the legendary Dinghai pearl before the start of next year's spring. He wanted to settle the matter that weighed on his mind as soon as possible so he could go back to the south to wait for death. Later in the evening, cheers could be heard from outside. Chen Xing went out to look, and it was snowing. "Xiang Shu. It's snowing," Chen Xing said as he returned to the tent and pointed outside. Xiang Shu frowned and observed Chen Xing, looking completely annoyed. It was snowing heavier and heavier. The first snow after autumn of this year had finally arrived. The north wind wailed, and the feather-like heavy snow engulfed everything in Gle Chuan. The bonfire was moved to the center of the tents, and Chen Xing watched it alone for a while from in front of the royal tent before someone came to deliver supper. After a simple meal, Xiang Shu simply gazed at the tent, lost in thought. Chen Xing just drank some wine, already used to Xiang Shu's any living person do not approach attitude. Soon, as usual, he lay down on his small couch and slept under a thin wool blanket. "You won't be able to go now," Xiang Shu finally said, "the north road is closed during heavy snow. You can only wait until the beginning of spring." Chen Xing didn't hear that. The wind came leaking into the tent, the blanket was thin, and the cold air blew over the night. He felt Xiang Shu covering him up with 2 more blankets in the middle of the night. When he woke up early in the morning the next day, the outside was already wrapped in silver, and yesterday's unhappiness was immediately swept away. "Oh my God!" Chen Xing was shocked. Mountains, lands, and prairies, everything was blanketed by thick snow. It was as if the entire world was sprinkled with glittering, silver-light sugar. The scorching sun was high, and it shone brightly on the sparkling snow. The stream was frozen overnight and was now covered with a thin layer of ice. The early riser-hus were breaking the ice on the stream so their horses could drink. Chen Xing sneezed, his nose felt a little stifled, and Xiang Shu was nowhere to be seen. "So beautiful," Chen Xing said to himself. Saying so, he quickly washed up, saw the breakfast on the table, ate it, then wrapped himself in a thick fur. Wandering out while struggling through the snow, he saw that Chi Le Chuan had transformed overnight into something akin to a paradise. Xiang Shu! Chen Xing shouted down from the top of the hillside. Xiang Shu was dressed in a tiger fur coat that reached his knees, a belt that lined up his well-defined waist, and a foxtail hat on his head. He was instructing a group of teals. At the same time, the tile warriors were stowing the tents and supplies, seemingly wanting to leave for some business. Hearing the shout, he looked at Chen Xing, his lips red and his teeth white under the sunshine, making Chen Xing's heart moved. Xiang Shu made a gesture, motioning for Chen Xing to wait up there, then turned around and approached him. "Let's go skiing." Xiang Shu said, "We couldn't play at yesterday's festival." Chen Xing was in a much better mood after waking up. He laughed and said, "All right." He intended to leave tomorrow. Since today was his last day, he had to keep some memories. As a result, Xiang Shu, leading Chen Xing, carried a cavalry shield up to the slope, and with one foot, he stepped on it. "Chen Xing! Xiang Shu, come up, and hug me tightly from behind." "Chen Xing, how do we do this? We're gonna fall down, ba. Not even a rope. One wrong step and we're going to roll all the way down." Xiang Shu said impatiently, "Rubbish. Quick." The cavalry shield was not big. Chen Xing tried to step on it, but Xiang Shu grabbed his hands and pushed him back, locked his arms in an instant, dragged him onto his back, and pulled him hard so he ended up hugging Xiang Shu tight. Stepping sideways on the shield, whoosh, they slid down. Chen Xing was taken along by Xiang Shu and immediately dived down from the top of the cliff. His heart almost jumped out of his throat. Xiang Shu stepped on the shield's tail, leaped out, and took him flying high up in the sky before finally landing safely. "Chen Xing! Xiang Shu, again!" Chen Xing still had some lingering fears, but he felt extremely excited. The slope was very steep, and it felt like jumping off an overhanging cliff. "I didn't even open my eyes," Chen Xing said. "Coward," Xiang Shu ridiculed. He whistled to summon a horse, flipped over and mounted it, taking Chen Xing to a higher and steeper slope. Chen Xing looked down, it was almost 3 li, and his feet immediately felt a little soft. "You're in the front this time," Xiang Shu said, "keep your eyes wide open." Chen Xing madly shouted, "Wah-ah!" Given no time for explanations, he was hugged by Xiang Shu, and they slid down. But just before they reached the end, Chen Xing turned his head around and told Xiang Shu, "Tomorrow, I'll." As soon as he turned his head, the two men's lips almost met. Xiang Shu's foot suddenly slipped, Chen Xing's foot became unsteady, the shield went out of control, and they fell into the snow. "Ha ha ha ha!" Chen Xing, with snow covering his whole face, got up and mocked Xiang Shu, "You, a moment ago, did you just blush?" Xiang Shu got up quickly with anger mottling his face, saying, "What are you doing?" Chen Xing hurriedly waved his hand to apologize, assuming that Xiang Shu, this sort of man, unexpectedly became very embarrassed when he was so close to other people that he even blushed. The other day, when he was almost kissed by Che Lufeng, Xiang Shu's reaction had been even more intense than this. Chen Xing picked up the shield, then said, "One more time." Xiang Shu took the shield. As they walked over towards the horse, Che Lufeng came from one side. He stood alone in the open ground and looked at the two men from afar. Xiang Shu motioned to Chen Xing, as if saying, "See? What did I tell you, ba? Che Lufeng, snowball fight." Xiang Shu measured Che Lufeng carefully, then asked, sobered up, "Yes. Yes." Che Lufeng waved his hand, then suddenly laughed again. Xiang Shu put Chen Xing on the horse, sat behind him while carrying the shield on his back, then put his hands around Chen Xing's waist. He shook the reins, went up the hill, and took a few steps before looking back. Only then did Che Lufeng come over and followed him, albeit bitterly. The Teals, Rurans, and Xian Nus, who had been heavily drunk last night, had also sobered up. With each of them bringing their own shield, they went uphill and followed the great Chanyu to make up for the ski fights they couldn't do at the autumn close festival. Thousands of people slid down from the hilltop down to the cliff. It was a magnificent sight. Xiang Shu held Chen Xing, and they slid down ahead. Che Lufeng soon caught up from behind them. Che Lufeng! Chen Xing tried to turn his head, but Xiang Shu grasped his head and forcefully turned it back, saying, "Look ahead." From start to finish, Che Lufeng never replied, and they slid again several more times. Soon, more and more people, men and women, arrived. All the people started to have snowball fights at the foot of the hill, shouting and yelling. It was extremely lively. Chen Xing was hit by Che Lufeng's snowballs several times in a row and immediately sensed his hostility. When he looked at Che Lufeng smiled back provocatively, his meaning quite clear: "You have snatched my anda. I will go back first." Chen Xing felt unpleasant to say anything, so he said to Xiang Shu, "You guys play." Xiang Shu also sensed the hostility. He held a snowball in his hand, weighing it. Chen Xing turned around and left. Xiang Shu glanced at Chen Xing, then looked at Che Lufeng, faintly smiling. Che Lufeng quickly assumed a fighting stance under the sunshine, and facing Xiang Shu, he smiled, like a big boy who lived a carefree life. But Xiang Shu threw the snowball to the ground, turned around, then walked away. Chen Xing returned to the royal tent with his brain spinning with dizziness. He realized he must have caught a cold last night, so he ground a medicine pill and drank it down with boiled hot water, before laying down on the couch to rest. Not long after, Xiang Shu came, bringing over a bowl and sweets cooked by the Teals. It was a tradition on the first day of snow to drink a black ginger dark brown sugar drink and stewed rice cakes. He frowned, asking, "Is the air chilly?" Chen Xing smelled ginger. Knowing it was a kind of food that repelled cold, he got up with much difficulty to drink it, just sweating a bit. Xiang Shu said, "Even a doctor still gets sick." Chen Xing, "It's normal if a doctor gets sick. I am not you, even all kinds of poisons dare not to invade your body." Xiang Shu sat in the tent and once again taunted him, "Are you still an exorcist? How about the heart lamp?" Chen Xing helplessly said, "The heart lamp is merely made of mana, it doesn't have the ability to protect one's body and grant immortality. In fact, it's precisely because of the use of the heart lamp's mana that my body has been weakened. I also want to be as good as you guys, okay? The Han's military power is not weak." The Han's military power is not weak, this point was indeed not wrong. Even after hundreds of years, all of the Hus outside the border were still very afraid of the formidable army, just like the time when the Wu Emperor was still in power. Chen Xing meant that his constitution was no good, but you shouldn't generalize from that all of the Hans were no good as well. Moreover, ever since his childhood, because of the heart lamp, he tended to cast magic, which must have somewhat taken a toll on his spirit and physique. He was basically a waste, a trash fish. Chen Xing spoke incoherently, trying to explain in several sentences, then lay down on his stomach again to sleep, sweating, thinking, tomorrow should be all right. Xiang Shu didn't leave. He got up very early that day, so he decided to mind his own business and lie down to sleep. In the evening, the sky was dusky, the wind was biting cold, and there was a blizzard. Che Lufeng braved the snow to come, saying outside the tent, "Anda, come and let's talk." Xiang Shu glanced at Chen Xing, got up and went out, afraid of waking him up. Chen Xing, who had been sleeping, without knowing why, suddenly woke up. Perhaps it was the heavens that wanted him to hear this conversation. Moreover, his consciousness was bright and clear. Che Lufeng spoke in Ruran, but Chen Xing had been living in Chi Le Chuan for some time and had studied a little bit, so from the tone of his voice, he could more or less guess that Che Lufeng was a little dissatisfied with him. "If you want to talk, let's go outside." Xiang Shu turned to leave, Or, do you want to fight? This is my own home, yet to talk, I have to hide from that Han man. Che Lufeng said. Xiang Shu. Xiang Shu's eyes began showing obvious anger. Che Lufeng continued, and just how much provocation did you hear from that Han? Xiang Shu angrily said, shut up. Che Lufeng. He saved your life. Che Lufeng snarled, blackmailing me with my life? Can I return this life back to him? As he said that, he pulled out a dagger, gesturing at his stomach, and shouted, get him to scram out of Chi Le Chuan for me. Chen Xing inside the tent immediately stood up, thinking that he must go out now and say something, else he, this outsider, would truly incite disharmony between Xiang Shu and Che Lufeng, and he had no interest in doing so. Xiang Shu was just about to step forward to seize the dagger in Che Lufeng's hand when he suddenly stopped. Amidst the violent snowstorm, several tile cavalrymen were showing the way for a Hu person, entering the valley. The Akele's messenger wishes to see the great Chan Yu, shouted the leader. Chen Xing immediately pulled open the curtain, coming out from inside the royal tent, looking for Xiang Shu. Go in, Xiang Shu said, you're still sick. Che Lufeng's complexion was clearly not good. Xiang Shu saw that Chen Xing had woken up, then motioned everyone to come in. End chapter. Dinghai Fusheng Records. Chapter 32. Rushing to aid. The messenger was trembling all over with cold, and once he entered the golden tent, he knelt down on one knee, speaking in a clear Xiongnu language. The four seas and the prairies are all the great Chan Yu's land, and all of the people under the sky are all the great Chan Yu's people. We, the Akele's, highly praise the great Chan Yu's martial prowess, the leader of the Chi Le Covenant, the master beyond the Great Wall, the greatest warrior. My tribe seeks your assistance, please save my whole tribe from a matter of life and death. As he spoke, the messenger respectfully presented a black wooden box. 4 gemstone rings were neatly placed inside it, blue-green, red, yellow ochre, and jade-green, all glittered in brilliance. As soon as Xiang Shu saw this, he knew the other had an urgent request. He was only wearing a fur robe, yet it didn't decrease his king's demeanor. He said in a deep voice, take it back. As long as it's within my power, I will help you. The messenger took a deep breath, saying, it's the medical supply. Something happened all of a sudden. Chen Xing first noticed the 4 rings, then he recalled the scrolls he had read in his master's place. He suddenly remembered a magical artifact, a set of imperial seal rings in 4 colors. The description of those 4 rings seemed to match with these. It was rumored that the rings were sealed by the 4 powers of earth, fire, ice, and wind. It was made by a Sogdian named Sasan. In the Silk Road, during the Han Dynasty, it was brought back by Zhang Jian. Afterward, it went back and forth among people and eventually disappeared. Nowadays, the spiritual qi in heaven and earth was gone, and there was no way to inspect it. Did you hear him? Xiang Shu said. Chen Xing came back to his senses, saying, what? Xiang Shu translated the words, saying that the wife of the Akele tribe's chief was having a difficult birth, just at the time they were on their way south to Chi Le Chuan. Although Zaraskal River was already frozen, it still had a thin layer of ice, which made it hard to cross the river. The snowstorm hindered them further, trapping the tribe inside a world of ice and snow. Because the consort was pregnant, it slowed down the speed of the whole tribe going south to get through the winter, delaying their arrival to Chi Le Chuan. The Akele's were arrogant and fierce and didn't want to blend with the rest of the ancient Chi Le Covenant, only coming during the winter. Even then, they only chose a place and seldom had dealings with the Teals, Xiannus, Rurans, and the other Hus. When autumn came and spring went, they left, never leaving the people in the ancient covenant any good impression of them. Even more so when 3 years ago, they and the Ruran were fighting over some water plants and waged a war over it, resulting in a deep insoluble blood feud. Are you going or not? Xiang Shu asked, Che Lufeng, this is the best chance to put your blood feud to an end. Che Lufeng suddenly laughed angrily, he gave a burst of crazy laughter. Did I hear that right, ba? Shulakong. Sure enough, Che Lufeng opened his mouth and spoke, what has the Akales ever done for the ancient covenant? They disappeared when the war started. It's already too late to come and ask for Great Chanyu's help now. To exterminate the entire tribe, heaven's eyes truly have been opened. Now when things shave become like this, they take one box filled with broken jewelry and come over, wanting to abandon the past. Xiang Shu's face immediately became sullen. Chen Xing immediately tried to mediate, saying, I will go along with the messenger to have a look. It was a big taboo for Che Lufeng to oppose the great Chanyu in public, but taking into consideration that they were endas, Xiang Shu quickly dispelled his anger and asked Chen Xing, will you deliver the baby? Chen Xing naturally would, but he was afraid of provoking Che Lufeng and Xiang Shu into another quarrel, so he had no alternative but to say, I will try my best ba, in any case I was also going to find the Akales to ask for directions, remember. Xiang Shu, send an order, convene each division to get some carriages and horses ready. They're going to set off to help the Akales to cross the river. Chen Xing tidied up his medicine box, and when he was about to leave, Che Lufeng blocked the path in front of the tent, saying, whoever wishes to help them, is an enemy to me. Unless Hulunbir dries up and Mount Helen collapses, the resentment between the Rurans and the Akales will never be solved. Xiang Shu eventually got up and slowly stepped forward. Chen Xing said, I am a doctor, it is only right for me to save people. Your resentment, you can settle it on your own at a later date, I have nothing to do with it. Che Lufeng, if you really wish to take revenge, why not challenge the Akale? This is merely a pregnant woman. Make way, Xiang Shu calmly interrupted Chen Xing's words and said in a lowered voice to Che Lufeng. Shulakong, Che Lufeng said, are you serious? Do you really want to protect this Han? His words not yet finished, Xiang Shu already raised his hand. Chen Xing didn't even see him doing it, but Che Lufeng received a heavy slap on his face. That slap wasn't clear and loud, but rather muffled. Xiang Shu only used less than 1/10 of his power. Che Lufeng immediately got hit, his head knocked against the tent's pole, and all of the men simultaneously shouted. Chen Xing. Chen Xing knew that Xiang Shu was truly angry right now and hurriedly said, don't be angry, if you have something to say, just say it. Drag him out. Xiang Shu shouted, throw cold water on him. Tie him on a pillar for 2 sichen. At once, some subordinates came and escorted Che Lufeng out. Chen Xing hurriedly motioned to the Akale messenger, let's go, otherwise later the Rurans will come back and trouble you again. The messenger flipped over and mounted his horse alongside Chen Xing. When they were just about to leave the valley, Xiang Shu appeared, riding a horse and following them. Xiang Shu. Chen Xing turned his head. Xiang Shu whipped his horse so he rode side by side with the messenger, then said to him, you go with the carriage team. The messenger nodded. Chen Xing had doubts across his whole face, but Xiang Shu simply reached out his hand and dragged him over. Chen Xing, with a burst of strength, jumped onto the back of Xiang Shu's horse and the 2 horses separated. Xiang Shu, with Chen Xing on his back, steered the horse and plunged into a world filled with wind and snow. Is he all right? Chen Xing couldn't help looking back. It'll calm him down, Xiang Shu said while looking at the wind and snow. Chen Xing hugged Xiang Shu's waist and with him, they both galloped through the snow which had covered everything. He once again sneezed. Xiang Shu slowed down the horse, but Chen Xing said, I have recovered. Just a little weak. Are there many Han people like you? Xiang Shu said. Chen Xing inexplicably said, what? I've said it before. Other people are not as weak as me, don't you see a lot of Hans? Xiang Shu replied, I don't know many Hans. Chen Xing. I said, the Han people's characters, are they all like you? Xiang Shu spoke, are they the type that even when being bullied so much, still rarely get upset? Chen Xing, this is called being educated and reasonable. Gentle and cultured. Screw you. What do you mean easy to bully? Xiang Shu, cold? Sit in the front. Chen Xing, isn't it colder in the front? You just want me to keep you out of the wind ba? Xiang Shu made Chen Xing sat in front of him, opened his fur coat, then wrapped him in it. Chen Xing was leaning on Xiang Shu's chest, and instead of feeling cold, Xiang Shu's body temperature was actually very warm, truly resembling the fire in the furnace in the night of the winter, which made him sleepy. There was also a very faint scent of the snowdrop bush from the western region lingering on his body. Jie! Xiang Shu encouraged the horse to pick up the pace. As they galloped across the snowfield, Chen Xing yawned, hugged Xiang Shu's waist, then once again fell asleep. At this time, he almost forgot that Xiang Shu was the great Chanyu of the Qi Le covenant. Half asleep and half awake, he only remembered that Xiang Shu was the man he had been waiting for and seeking for a very long time, his protector martial god. It was as if he had also been waiting for Chen Xing for a lifetime, that he was born for him. They would light up the heart lamp to illuminate the dusky night of Sibei and ride the wind towards the ends of the divine land. Zaraskal riverside, amidst the boundless wind and snow, Xiang Shu left the horse on the bank. He woke Chen Xing, lay down his shield, then told him to step and wait on it. Chen Xing was confused, his eyes still bleary from sleep. He turned around to ask, "What?" "The horse can't get through, the ice is too thin." Xiang Shu answered. Chen Xing. Xiang Shu first walked away before dashing back towards Chen Xing. He leaped into the air and hugged him from behind. With the help of that leaping force, he took him into a slide. With a crash sound, the two men on the shield launched forward into the river, making Chen Xing scream in astonishment. Xiang Shu was as fast as lightning, the efforts he used was just right, and behind them, the layer of ice split in the direction of their slide before shattering into smaller pieces one by one, but the two men were still safe and sound. The ice water of the Zaraskal rose into the sky, and a violent wind blew over. At that moment, Chen Xing seemed to hear some kind of sound coming from the bottom of his heart. In a blink of an eye, Xiang Shu had successfully marched through the river bank. Chen Xing turned his head, and the torrential water of the river rose once again, completely swallowing the already scattered ice. "You have too many guts," Chen Xing said. "What if we fell?" Xiang Shu conveniently put the shield back on his back, then pulled Chen Xing along to walk through the snow. Chen Xing suddenly felt clear-headed, seeing that Xiang Shu wielded an exceptional Qing Gong, and the more he thought about it, the more afraid he became. "Why are you so chatty?" Xiang Shu impatiently said. From a not too distant place, a group of made-up tents could be seen. Finally, they had arrived at the Akele's camps. Someone saw Xiang Shu and immediately blew the horn. The tribe's king was currently anxiously waiting, so he quickly commanded a group of warriors to check it out. Seeing it was Xiang Shu, they, at once, shouted in succession. A quarter of an hour later, Xiang Shu was drinking milk tea and chatting with King Akele in the Akele's royal tent. Chen Xing washed his hand with Shaiju, intending to go into another small tent to deliver the consort's baby. King Akele was a robust, tall, and sturdy man close to 50. He looked fierce but was still very courteous towards Xiang Shu. Chen Xing looked at the consort and discovered that the situation was already a bit dire. After 1 day and 1 night, he was afraid the mother and child would not be able to survive. He hurriedly went back to look for a pellet that could strengthen the heart. "In case she isn't able to support it," Chen Xing said, "I will protect the consort." Xiang Shu said a few words to King Akele, they both nodded, and he translated, "Save the consort." Xiang Shu put down his teacup, wanting to help, but Chen Xing made him stay behind to look after King Akele, who on the surface appeared as if nothing had happened, yet his trembling hands betrayed him. The consort's complexion was deadly pale, and several tribeswomen were helping at her side. Giving birth on the prairie was truly like living on the edge, very dangerous if compared to the Hans who were in the south. Chen Xing gave the Akele's consort medicine and performed some acupuncture on her. Soon enough, her complexion was restored, and she looked carefully at Chen Xing, saying, You are. I am the great Chen Yu's friend. Chen Xing held her hand then said, You can speak Han language? Consort, try to push hard. Xiang. Xiang Yuan's child, in, where? The consort said wearily, Is he here, too? Xiang what yan? Chen Xing suddenly realized something, a hypothesis forming on his head, Xiang Shu's mother. A Han? As expected, Xiang Shu does look like a Han. You two know each other. Chen Xing was flabbergasted. You are also a Han. The consort held Chen Xing's hand. What's your name? Chen Xing was about to say some words, but then he suddenly came back to his senses. He hurriedly said, Now is not the time for idle gossip. Concentrate on giving birth first, we can talk again after that. Consort, come on, exert yourself. The consort, her hair all disheveled, used all her strength and screamed loudly, Ah! Excuse me for a while, consort, I'm going to violate my propriety. Saying so, Chen Xing condensed the heart lamp and pressed it on the consort's heartache ointment. The bright light shone and protected her heartache ointment, and once again, he began to perform acupuncture on her. Chen Xing used every means that he had. Exactly half a second later, all the tribeswomen cried out in joy. Chen Xing asked, Did it work? What did they say? Head, the head came out, Xiang Shu translated from outside the tent. Chen Xing, the outside is cold, you go back and drink tea. Consort, keep trying. You're going to make it. Outside, a large crowd had surrounded the tent. In this freezing weather, Chen Xing was sweating all over, changing needles, putting needles in, feeding medicine to the consort, and stimulating her last bit of willpower, until the cry of an infant finally resonated. Chen Xing felt as if a great weight had been lifted from him and nearly collapsed right away. Another quarter of an hour later, Chen Xing made glug, glug, glug sounds as he poured more than half a pot of milk tea down his throat in the Akele's royal tent, gasping for breath. King Akele and the consort's maternal uncle household personally came over to express their thanks. Chen Xing wanted to return the gifts, but Xiang Shu waved his hand, indicating that he should not be too modest. If something given by the Xian news is returned, it will be considered humiliating, Xiang Shu said. Chen Xing had no alternative but to accept them. It was snowing heavier and heavier outside, and they would have to at least wait until tomorrow to be able to cross the river back to Chi Le Chuan. King Akele cleaned up a warm tent, arranged it properly, set up a charcoal fire, and let the two men go ahead and sleep. After one night, the outside had almost developed into a snowstorm, the sky dark and the earth black, and it was impossible to distinguish between day and night. Xiang Shu took Chen Xing to the Akele's royal tent to drink tea, eat roasted meat, and chat. The Xiongnu language spoken by the Akele's was way older than the language spoken by the rest of the Hus in Chi Le Chuan. The syllables used a lot of ancient sounds, and even Xiang Shu sometimes didn't understand it. In Chen Xing's ears, they were similar to crows rattling, and it made his head spin. The consort came out hugging the baby, whose eyes hadn't opened yet, and showed it to the crowd. Chen Xing cheerfully smiled, touched the baby's clenched fist, saying, It's a little prince. King Akele, ever since the death of his firstborn, had been heirless for so many years. Now that the consort was nearly 50, she had given birth to another one, and he was deeply moved. He asked Xiang Shu to name his child. Xiang Shu didn't decline and gave the child the name Nadaro, which, in the ancient Xiongnu language, meant the ocean under the mountain. Chen Xing signaled with his eyes, wanting to ask King Akele about the matter of the map, Xiang Shu nodded and took out the parchment. You brought it with you. Chen Xing felt slightly moved. He recalled that Xiang Shu, when they had first departed, had indeed been a little behind him, so it should be because he had to get the map. Xiang Shu said a lot of words to King Akele and showed him the map. King Akele was skeptical. He looked over it carefully for a moment before ordering his men to look for someone. He said he didn't know, but some old hunters in the tribe might know something, Xiang Shu explained. Chen Xing's heart was perturbed. He could only pray, hoping that there were clues. Inside the tent, the only thing that could be heard was the crackling sound of the furnace fire. The consort handed over the baby to the wet nurse, smiling as she said, "Is Chen Xing a relative from your maternal uncle's side?" "What?" Xiang Shu was stunned, saying, "No, he's the one I met in the Central Plains." "A friend." Chen Xing nodded, then concentrated on drinking his tea. The consort then said, "Then, did you find any of your mother's family?" "No," Xiang Shu answered, "there was much chaos because of the war. I'm not planning to look for them. My father had also been trying to find them all these years to no avail." Chen Xing didn't dare to interrupt, but Xiang Shu seemed to know what he was thinking and said, "My mother is a Han." Chen Xing nodded his head, and the consort said once again, in the blink of an eye, 20 years had passed. Xiang Shu huffed, a little lost in thought, glanced at Chen Xing, and ended up meeting his eyes. Chen Xing's heart was doubtful, and he was a little restless. Xiang Shu conveniently said, "It's fine. The fact that my mother is a Han is not a shameful matter." The consort laughed and said, "He didn't know? You can clearly see it by his looks." Chen Xing had asked Xiang Shu before, but had nearly got beaten up for his troubles. As a result, he had been afraid to ask again. Xiang Shu only said in a light manner, "After my mother died, my father was full of sorrow, making the clansmen refrain from mentioning my mother. As time passed, the ancient covenant started to think that I also didn't like anyone mentioning it, so no one dared to talk about it." Shulakong's mother, the consort said, was indeed quite beautiful, very beautiful. Chen Xing said, "You can just look from her son's appearance to know that fact." Xiang Shu spoke casually, "Hence, my Han name follows my mother's surname, and now I'm telling you." Chen Xing thought for a moment, then said, "In the future, if you have a chance, you can go south to try and find your maternal uncle's family. I remember there is a large and influential family with the surname Xiang among the Hans." "Xiang Yu," Xiang Shu spoke casually. Chen Xing nodded, saying, "Yes, he's a famous person in Pengcheng." After the large-scale migration to the south, most of the Central Plains scholars moved to Kuiji. I can't say for sure, but you can try asking around Kuiji. Xiang Shu indifferently said, "We'll see." The consort said, "When Yuan was still alive, she said she still had one Han friend, her foster elder brother, whose name I have sadly forgotten. Maybe you can try tracking this man down to find out more. Maybe he's still in the world of the living." Xiang Shu. Xiang Shu was a little at loss, so the consort said, "I remember that year, it was on the edge of Lake Barkle." "When did she go to Barkle Lake?" Xiang Shu asked. 22 years ago, before you were born." The consort said, "The first time I saw her, she was walking all the way north. She said she was looking for someone, a man." Xiang Shu said, "She came to Chi Le Chuan 20 years ago, that's what my father had said when he was still alive." The consort didn't want to argue, smiling as she said, "Then, I must have remembered it wrong. Where is Barkle Lake?" Chen Xing was baffled after listening to everything. The consort spoke, "Further to the north from here, in the place where we graze during summer." Xiang Shu interrupted, 2 years before giving birth to me, she had already been outside the Great Wall." The consort tried hard to remember, but it was still unclear. Chen Xing asked, "What's wrong? Is it inconsistent with what you remember?" Xiang Shu frowned and said, my dad told me that the year he met her, she was being pursued by her enemies and fainted in the prairie outside the Great Wall. When my dad went hunting, he unintentionally saved her. From then on, she settled in Chuan, and 2 years later, she gave birth to me. Chen Xing was a little curious about her enemies, but in the end, it all happened in Xiang Shu's past. Since the other person didn't mention it, it was no good to ask and dig up the matter after all. So, it was once again quiet in the Akele's royal tent, until the men ordered by King Akele came in, bringing 2 old hunters. First, they bowed in courtesy to Xiang Shu, saying Great Chanyu. They got up to read the parchment, then said some words. The consort began translating. There is indeed such a place. They asked the Great Chanyu how does he know about it. With a strong archaic accent, Xiang Shu said not to waste their efforts to ask. Chen Xing was immediately full of joy and spoke, "Where is it?" Thus, the 2 old hunters began to spread out another parchment, drawing the route to the place. The consort said, "They said, this is a cursed place, and mountain ghosts often show up. 10 years ago, they had entered it once to hunt. Mountain ghosts." Chen Xing was astonished. What is a mountain ghost? Chen Xing had only heard of mountain demons, which, in ancient texts, had never been recorded down as mountain ghosts. A mountain demon had an appearance of a one-legged creature with a child's face and was a supernatural being that lived deep in the mountains, but they had also gone extinct a long time ago. The deads, the consort said, are buried in the mountains. If they don't rot after some years, they will become mountain ghosts. Chen Xing. Xiang Shu. Chen Xing and Xiang Shu looked at each other and thought, aren't those drought fiends? Go on, Xiang Shu commanded. Once the 2 men finished drawing the map, they built on and backed up each other's stories. The Xiongnu's legend about the place named Karasha was indeed true, but they didn't know from what period it originated from. It was rumored that in some ancient era, when there were still no written records, a dragon god fell in the north, turned into 3 smaller mountains, and the blood flowing out of the dragon formed a big water body. It was once a sacred mountain where the Xiongnu had buried their dead warriors. Over time, the decomposed dragon god's body formed the marsh gas that gradually revived those corpses, and those who accidentally broke into the mountain would forever unable to leave the place. Chen Xing thought that each tribe had many such legends, and since the main purpose of them was to dissuade people from recklessly disturbing the burial grounds, the legends were spread even more mystifyingly. They ought to be drought fiends, and they shouldn't be there of all places. Running all the way there to make a pile of drought fiends, with the cold weather and the frozen ground that could easily turn them into ice sculptures, where they could only stay motionless and could even get buried in the avalanche. Who had enough free time to do such a troublesome thing? Xiang Shu then said, the mountain ghost you saw, what does it look like? The 2 old hunters vividly described it, but neither of them had actually seen the mountain ghost's true face. Chen Xing breathed a sigh of relief, but then, he noticed that the consort and King Akele had been exchanging looks, and he felt something was a little off. Xiang Shu nodded and thanked the 2 of them, then handed the map to Chen Xing. Tomorrow, when the Zaraskal River has completely frozen, the Tile and Xiongnu tribes will be able to cross the river, escorting you until you reach Chuan. Xiang Shu told King Akele, the location for the camp has already been chosen, it is the same location as last year. King Akele thanked him once again, then Chen Xing suddenly asked, about the mountain ghosts, is there anything else you know? Maybe it was purely based on his intuition, but Chen Xing couldn't help but ask this question because he persistently felt that perhaps there was some matter that King Akele and the consort were afraid of. The consort shook her head, her expression a little stupefied. King Akele diverged from the topic, saying something to Xiang Shu. Xiang Shu also noticed, but he didn't push for more and just nodded. That night, the entire tribe began to tidy up their things and prepare to cross the river the next day. Chen Xing returned to his tent. The day was indeed very cold, and this was just the beginning of winter. If there were no Yin mountains to shield them from the wind, this group of people would likely survive no more than 2 months with how ruthless the cold in Zaraskal riverside was. Chen Xing's whole body felt cold, and he trembled slightly. Xiang Shu lightly said, "With this constitution of yours, you still want to go north? The north is even colder." Chen Xing said, "I've been very idle these days, just have to wait until I recovered a little." Xiang Shu opened his quilt slightly, saying, "Come and sleep here." Chen Xing couldn't ask for more, he was shivering all over his body. He held his quilt, wrapped himself in it, went to Xiang Shu's quilt, and wormed his way into it, thinking, "Che Lufeng once tried to get into your quilt, only to have you kick him out, but you unexpectedly treat me nicely? Is the consort hiding something? I think King Akele also seems to know something. Matters that other people don't want to say, you mustn't recklessly mention them." Chen Xing replied, "You've been quite calm and good-tempered these days, and you haven't been mean to me." "Xiang Shu, I'm not crazy. If you speak nicely, why should I be mean to you?" Chen Xing warmed up a lot as soon as they lay down together, his whole person coming back to life. The two men were covered by the same quilt, so the space felt awfully small, and since their faces were nearly stuck together, it made Chen Xing's face actually go red. Without waiting for him to say it, Xiang Shu turned to lie flat on his back, so they would not end up being too close. In the end, he bent one knee inside his quilt, slightly moved against the blanket. Chen Xing's heart suddenly leaped, and for a moment, his heart churned with confusion and ambiguity. He recalled that day under the tree, the words he had said to Tuobayan. "I don't think I like Xiang Shu ba. No, no." Chen Xing forced the idea out of his mind. Maybe, a sense of dependency towards the protector? Ever since Chen Xing had become aware he had to find a protector, he had brimmed with indescribable expectations for that person whose name and origin was unknown to him. Every time he was near him, that expectation seemed to have morphed into reality. Chen Xing kept tossing and turning, he couldn't sleep well, and his heart was in a mess. From the corner of his eyes, he suddenly discovered that Xiang Shu seemed to be looking at him, so he turned sideways, wanting to say something. End chapter.